That's what I would recommend to anybody is just go absolutely all in. It was a full-blown burn the boats. I quit my job and that was it. You don't know what it feels like until you need to roll a 6. No, when you need a 6, you figure out how to get a 6. Not to mention just the social reputation of, wait, you just quit law? You just studied 3 years, $181,000 of student debt, and you're just going to not do that? Yeah, no, I'm done. I'm out in one hard. But then there was no turning back. So I need a 6. I made it work.
Welcome to the Patrick Real Estate Show, where we explore the fascinating world of real estate investing with your host, Patrick Switek. Patrick is a dynamic young entrepreneur and an accomplished real estate investor who's passionate about helping others achieve financial freedom. Each week, we sit down with some of the most inspiring individuals in the real estate industry and delve into their personal journeys, lessons learned, and secrets to their success. Let's dive into this week's episode.
Mike Stone, welcome to the Patrick Real Estate Show, man. I'm excited to have you on. You are honestly one of the most energetic people I know. Apart from me, I feel like I bring the energy, but a lot of times you do bring that crazy energy to anything you talk about. You're super passionate. I think just coming together, we just get really passionate about things and we can talk about things for forever, honestly.
We are pretty similar in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the people that don't know, Mike he's an MTR / short-term rental operator. We actually met in STR Secrets, which is a mastermind, and we became good friends. And he quickly realized that he really enjoys the MTR strategy hybrid with the short-term rental strategy. He does a really good job of it in Phoenix, Arizona. He's got 11 currently, and they're all in the hybrid model. And he's taught even my students on how to effectively do the model, because it's not as easy as just putting it up on Airbnb. And so he's going to be sharing a lot of these things today, I'm sure. And we're going to hear his story and how he got into space. And I'm excited for all you guys to hear it. Mike, without further ado, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It is actually a really big privilege to be here. I remember back in the day, so we actually met even before Secrets at the Rentalpreneur 2022 in Houston.
Yep.
And I remember shortly thereafter is when you started posting content. And what was cool is I remember not only did I like your content, but you were doing so well, being consistent for so long. I just always admired that. I kept coming back, and every time I see you on the Instagram feed, I'm like, damn, he's still going. Yeah. And it obviously turned into this awesome following that you have today with the conferences and the coaching and now the buy-sell business. So to make it on this podcast feels pretty cool, man. I appreciate you having me. This is great.
Of course, man. And I'm happy to have you. I honestly, it's something that I probably should have done earlier, honestly. There's so many cool people out there, but you're obviously one of them. Thanks for hopping on. But where did it start, man? I honestly don't even know for myself, because we just went straight into it. How did you even get into short-term rentals? What really inspired you?
Sure, yeah. So it actually went back to, I was an attorney before this, and I hated my job so much. I graduated law school. I love law school. Let me start there. I had great internships. I had great grades. I had great friends. And I got a great job offer when I was leaving school to work at a big law firm downtown doing corporate litigation, $135,000 starting salary plus bonuses and all the good stuff, and very clear pay raises. When I graduated, though, that year, I also got an offer to do a clerkship, which is when you work in the judge's chambers. So I was at the Arizona Court of Appeals, helping the judge make decisions on active cases. After coming out of law school, which I loved, I hated working for the judge. It was awful. And then that was about a year. Then I was looking to get back into the actual practice of law. And that was the year of COVID. So the firm that had given me the job offer said, Mike, we have a hiring freeze going on. And I was like, you mean like right after me, right? Like I'm in and then everybody else can have some time. And he was like, dude, I'm sorry, like not in Phoenix, not in Denver, not in Seattle. We're just completely tight. And that was true of all firms at the time, except for the only two things that were still going on during COVID was divorces and car accidents. So I could have gotten into family law, or I could have got into insurance defense litigation, which is what I chose because it was a lot of contracts. And I thought that would set me up nicely for corporate litigation when things calmed down after COVID. I hated that too. A lot. And so it was, I remember the day before that job, I couldn't sleep because I was awake all night thinking of business ideas. And I distinctly remember thinking to myself, like, man, it's not good to be starting a job already looking to get out. But here we go. So I started my job there. That lasted for a little while. I was very good at it, but like I said, it was just not the lifestyle for me.
Yeah.
And I would look at the partners in my firm who I just didn't admire, who'd been doing this 20, 40 years. And I'm like, I don't want to be that guy in 20 or 40 years. So I had to get out. I remember that's when I started looking into investing. I got into stocks and then Bitcoin and then real estate, like Kiyosaki Real Estate 101, Rich Dad Poor Dad. And that's when I found an ad for short-term rental coaching. It was a coaching program that I'm not going to speak ill, but I definitely don't recommend. It was a $1,000 program. And I don't regret it because it gave me the idea. 6 weeks after that, I quit my job. I got one fourplex, and that deal was enough to replace my attorney income. And so I quit my job 2 weeks after that, in 2 weeks' notice, so 8 total weeks. That was March 19th. March 20th to 25th, I did a Tony Robbins Business Mastery Seminar, and then I was on my own. And I've been doing this ever since. Because I remember when I was looking at that ad from the coach about Airbnb, I was like, man, this is on all fours with everything I've been learning about real estate. But lower barrier to entry and higher cash flow. That's what I need right now. I can't buy property, and I want to get out of my job today. I want to start this today. So I was out. Airbnb was it for me.
Awesome. Yeah. And I think the high cash flow definitely appeals to a lot of people. 100%. I was the same way with getting into real estate, thinking, oh, long-term rentals might cash flow me $200. Okay, I can get thousands here. I'm going to go to where you can make thousands. I definitely resonate with that fact. Now, when you were doing being an attorney, why did you even go to law school to begin with if you were not passionate about being an attorney?
I thought I was. That was actually what was interesting is I lived law stuff my whole life, law and order and just that. I was very good at reading and writing and critical thinking, not so much math, at least at the time. Now I'm in business, I forced myself to figure it out. But back then it was like, I used to identify as, I don't like math, I'm a words guy. And so it just made sense. And I also was chasing the money. Like I thought, doctors and lawyers make a lot of money. And if I'm not doing math or science, then I'm not gonna be a doctor. How about attorney stuff? Let's see how that goes. And I did love school. Like the theory of law is awesome. And the internships I had in sports law specifically and other areas of law that were actually really interesting, I did get passionate about those, but it wasn't a lifestyle. Like it wasn't a job that I wanted to have long term. I don't like the idea of being a W-2 in the first place, so that has nothing to do with law. Like I just don't want a boss. So that was interesting to learn on myself the hard way. And yeah, so that was it. I gave it a good faith, honest effort, and I was good at it, so it made sense to do what I'm doing. But just so many people who are probably good at the jobs they're in, whether you're a nurse or a lawyer or anything else for that matter, if you're comfortable making a good job, it could be marketing. Whatever you're doing, if you don't love it, the out is always starting a business, do your own thing.
And I think that not all people are meant to be in the workspace, but I also believe that not all people should be entrepreneurs. And so that's like some people just get forced into it and totally understand.
I sometimes struggle to wrap my brain around the latter because I believe in myself and I believe that other people could do what I do. And that's why I coach them. Hey, if you do this, you'll get these results. And so I struggle sometimes to think about from other people's perspectives, I couldn't be an entrepreneur. Sure you could. I actually definitely believe that you could if that's what you wanted to. But as you get into the real world, you do see some people are just not cut out for it. I don't think that's inherent. I don't think it's an intellectual deficit. I think it's just the type of person you are and whether you're not committed. Whether you can go through some of the suffering that comes with building a business. It's not easy. And so, yeah, I definitely think some people are just cut from a different cloth. And I just couldn't be the W-2 guy.
Exactly. And same here. I couldn't be a W-2 guy either. I was the worst W-2 employee. That's cool, man. Yeah. So you're going through this mindset shift as an attorney. Now, granted, you went right into it and you saw entrepreneurship is your way out. You got into short-term rentals. You got the fourplex. Walk me through what was your thought process from then on?
Yeah, that fourplex I thought was my gift because I remember the Kiyosaki model, have my assets pay for my liabilities. In this case, my asset was my business. And I was cash flowing from that deal, at least $8,000 a month. I started with the tailwinds of COVID in that business. So everyone had that pent up travel demand. So it was back in the era when anyone could win on Airbnb. Plus I was actually good at it. And so that combination was lethal. And that's why I was able to quit so quickly. That's when I felt like I had not my financial freedom because I'm working more hours now than I ever was before in my life, but it was financial independence. I knew I didn't have to answer anybody except my guests, which is 88 bosses at a time. You know how that feels. But I didn't have to answer to anybody. I didn't have to work with clients I don't like. I didn't have to work with vendors I don't like. So it felt like I had my independence.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. Very shortly thereafter, I got a little cocky and I found another fourplex and I called the owner of that fourplex and I was like, listen, man, I'm arbitraging over here, a model that I no longer recommend or promote, but that I was doing. And so I was arbitraging over here. I said, I'm already running a fourplex and my inventory doesn't even meet the demand. I'm doing so well over here. Can I please do the same thing with your fourplex? He was thrilled to hear it. He said, that was a great idea, of course. In retrospect, he probably got a little bit more money out of me per property or per unit than I should have signed up for. I didn't know any better. There's total rookie move. But what was worse as a rookie move was at that time I was in Sean Rakicic's Airbnb automated Cracking Superhost course, the paid one, and which is phenomenal as far as arbitrage is concerned. I don't do arbitrage anymore, but his coaching program is excellent. He gave me a warning. It's a little close. Like the numbers you're running, I don't feel super confident in this arbitrage deal. You might be okay, but you might not be. There's other deals. Find something else. And I was like, no, I feel like if I can make this work, they already said yes, let me double my portfolio, and they were so nice. And I'm paying literally more than twice as much to my landlord in that second deal that I would make twice as much money, or at least I was wrong. I was just rookie all up wrong. And it was twice as expensive, but I was making basically the same amount of money. And so no cash flow. It was awful. I lost a lot of money on the furniture. It was a really bad idea. And because it was arbitrage, I was paying that no matter what. So that was unfortunate. And that's when I had two other arbitrage deals, so 10 total. But since then I shifted to co-hosting only. And that's how I've been building my business ever since. I've had as many as 22 properties at a time. I'm at 11 now, and I'm focusing on some other things as well. So I'm comfortable at 11. I'd like to cut some bad properties and add some nicer properties. I've certainly elevated into more luxury type of properties by co-hosting, because that was the other biggest mindset shift for me with arbitrage and co-host. Was like, I thought on a per unit basis, I'd make more money doing arbitrage. But I realized that if I have to be the one spending the money on the furniture, then that is no longer true, because I can get into a nicer home in the first place to co-host with no money out of pocket. Have the owners furnish their own houses. So now I'm in 5-bedroom homes, and I definitely prefer that model. So that's been my progression in a nutshell.
Yeah, $0 down. It does take a little bit of some expertise to be able to determine that you're capable of co-hosting, but there's ways to do that. I've definitely taught that model too. Now, granted, let's say that co-hosting, the whole thing, walk me through what was next for you when you went into the co-hosting model. And at this point, I feel like you've already invested into anything you wanted to get into. You just found a coach and you just went into it, which is
That's exactly what I did. Is I found Mike Sjogren, and with all due respect to Sean, it was a great program. Sean is the master of the Airbnb algorithm and how to do arbitrage and how to run that model. Now that I was looking to co-host, I feel like Sjogren has a more complete hospitality business type of program. And he goes wider where Sean goes deeper into the mechanical and the granular. And so that breadth of education was helpful for me, and especially the co-host specific education. And so, I just committed to that mastermind, and that's where I made a ton of friends, did a ton of deals. That's the best. There's nothing better than the community, in my opinion. That's where I started going to conferences, meeting people like yourself. And that's where my whole career started, or my whole business started to grow, because I was meeting high-level operators and talking about high-level operations and how do you grow and how do you fix this and how do you do your SOPs and who do you hire. That's when it opened up my whole world of building this business out, building my own book of business for guests as well as for co-hosts, as well as for eventually I want to own as many of my own properties as I possibly can. So that's been that progression as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And with that, so what kind of strategy did you take in Phoenix to deploy that allowed you to get into co-hosting? And and you were doing short-term rental co-hosting at this moment.
Yeah, so at first completely it was all short-term rentals.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was looking at STR Insights data, shout out to Kenny Bedwell, who has an amazing product and he's an amazing dude. I was using his short-term rental insights to find out what bedroom counts were the best in the area. And what I found was that in Phoenix, Scottsdale, and Tempe, when you have a 3-bedroom, the ROI is better than a 4-bedroom. I guess that extension of a 4th bedroom doesn't have much ROI. But when you jump to a 5-bedroom, it's an astronomical difference. From 8 to 12% ROI based on STR Insights data to 30. And I was like, Jesus, that's just a no-brainer then. And the fact that was true across all 3 cities validated the data for me. And so I started focusing on 5-bedroom homes or 4 pluses, the plus being like an MLS term for there's a room with a conversion. Like in Arizona, we call it an Arizona sunroom, where it's more wide than long. It's not really a good bedroom, but it can be. But there's a lot of windows. It's really nice for the sun. Do the right thing with the blinds and the window treatments. You can make that into a nice 5th bedroom. And then, so just the higher level properties. What I've found is the return on energy for the high level properties is so worth it, because it's not only just making more money for the same amount of work, but with the lower quality properties come the lower quality guests. And that's more maintenance, more refund fights, more review disputes, more just stuff. And I hate the stuff. So it's been important for me to upgrade into the more amenity-heavy, luxurious homes. And it doesn't have to be baller. I have some baller properties, but you get just a standard quality 3, 4, 5-bedroom home is really where I wanted to be at, as opposed to some of the 2-bedrooms and 1-bedrooms that I was running. I had a studio that was just a comical nightmare of stories. I'd rather be in the 5.
That's great. And so you got your niche, right? You understood. Looking at data, I think, is an important aspect of any market. And it seems like you've always been adaptable. You sway into what direction you need to go. And I think we're going to allude to that with the MTR hybrid that's coming. But in general, it seems like, okay, arbitrage is great, but how can I love this short-term rental thing, but at the same time, arbitrage, maybe not for me, high costs with the furniture and all that. Okay, maybe one bedroom's not my thing. Okay, so you're always adapting, but the important thing, you took action, right? So I think that's one of the key things here.
I agree with that big time.
Yeah.
Around myself, man. And that's what I would recommend to anybody is just go absolutely all in. It was a full-blown burn the boats. I quit my job and that was it. There's a guy I follow. He goes, you don't know what it feels like until you need to roll a 6. And they're like, yeah, like a 1 in 6 shares. Like, I need a 6. Like, I need a 6. Like, all right, we see. No, when you need a 6, you figure out how to get a 6.
Yep. And
And that's what it was when I had nothing else. And not to mention just the social reputation of, wait, you just quit law? You just studied 3 years, $181,000 of student debt, and you're just going to not do that? Yeah, no, I'm done. I'm out in one hard.
Sunk
But then
cost.
there was no turning back. So I need a 6. I made it work.
Yeah, absolutely. So with midterm rentals, how did midterm rentals come into play? And this is a little bit to do with Arizona, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's a little bit Arizona. That definitely was a thing, the timing. So what was really messed up is that second fourplex that I was talking about. What made it so awful is in part, was the launch. Initially, the launch was going to be August 2nd is when they would give me access to the property. It was a new construction property, so they got C of O. Supposedly, they were going to get C of O within a few weeks. I'd be in August 2nd. That's a tough month, but I'd be building it out by September. We'd be entering back into the cooler weather and the busier season. October, November, by Christmas, we're flying here. And then I have all of January's really good. February's amazing. March is the peak. We're making so much money, it literally doesn't even make sense. I've had March months go by where I feel guilty charging so much, and it's unbelievable. April's still pretty good. That would have been wonderful. But instead, there were construction delays, and I believe they lied, but they basically were telling me in 6 to 8 week periods that, just a little bit longer, just a little bit longer, just a little bit longer, just a little bit longer. And so I was like, just getting frustrated, but I lost all of busy season and we launched in the summer. So now this property's too expensive. It was a mistake in the first place. I shouldn't have been there. Plus it's summertime in Phoenix. It's 110 degrees. Nobody's traveling here. Nobody's interested. So I'm missing out on all that. I think I designed it okay for my budget, and it wasn't unreasonable. I wasn't the one night stand guy or anything like that, but it wasn't beautiful. Like, I sacrificed rugs in certain places that I probably shouldn't have, or like even it would have been a good opportunity for some murals and some higher end amenities that I think an owner buying one property may have invested in, but I didn't have the capacity to invest in at the time. And maybe I could have made a better product. Just trying to take responsibility for myself. My point is that deal really put me in pain, and I needed money. I needed money now. And so I found the first one was actually inbound. It was when we were at that conference together in Houston. I got my first inbound call from an insurance company. It was from a temporary accommodations provider who was the middleman between companies like myself and companies and the insurance companies. And so he called me, and he says he needed a lead right in my area for a 2-bedroom house, and he asked the price. And I remember, I don't even know how I decided, but $5,000 just rolled off my tongue. And he was like, yeah, no problem. And I was like, whoa, what? So for context, this property that I offered for $5,000, I arbitraged for $1,500. It was a 9-month stay. And then I had $200 of fees or whatever stuff on top. So it was $5,200. I was cash flowing $3,700 a month for 9 months. That's one unit in the fourplex, the original good fourplex. So all the other 3 units were pure profit because I paid $5,000 a month for the whole thing. So to get all 4 units covered for 9 months by this one deal, everything else was profit. I was just coasting. It was beautiful. So I was like, wow, I want more of this. So that other one was inbound. Then I started doing some research, and I started reaching out to ALE Solutions, who's one of the biggest players in the temporary accommodation provider space, the middleman space. And I met this one girl, Deanna. I'll use her name because she's no longer housing specialist. She still works there, but she was my OG. And I would just ask her questions about, what is this whole thing? I know it as MTR, but to you, it's temporary accommodations. Teach me. And so she taught me about the insurance process, how the family pays their insurance policy. They pay to the insurer. When there's a fire, a flood, or a substantial remodel, they're displaced from their home. They have ALE, that abbreviation stands for Alternative Living Expenses. That comes from the insurance company paying the alternative living expenses for their new housing, their temporary accommodations. That's where the temporary accommodations provider, that company steps up, like ALE Solutions, which is where they get their name, and they call me for housing. And so she explained that whole process to me, what's important to them, which has definitely changed over time. But back then I had a whole punch list of all the things that were important to them. And as a short-term rental provider, it was really easy to accommodate what was important to them. They liked that it was furnished. They liked that it was 30 days to vacate. I'm like, I'm used to 1 day to vacate. You 30? I can get my guests back dialed in within 30 days, no problem. And what was nice is the insurance companies have budgets, not feelings. So I could charge these ridiculous prices and nobody was mad. Not only that, the housing specialist who I talked to from the temporary accommodations provider company, they're not negotiating against me. They're just trying to check if it fits the adjuster's budget. So I'm not even in a head-to-head conflict. I'm just saying, yes, this is my price. They're like, all right, let me see if I can get that for you. Great, let me know. And I would always say to them, Deanna and the original guy in particular, I was like, listen, if you can't accommodate this budget, if I give you a price and it doesn't work for you, come back to me. Don't go to another operator. Let me either find you another house, I got options, or let me see if I can work with the homeowner. I always blame the homeowner. Let me see if I can get them a better price. I would even do that in my arbitrage deals when I had complete control over the price. Let me talk to the homeowner, see what we can do. And so they would come back to me. And so then I would just keep a relationship with these people. And I would build my CRM I talked to the first guy, then it was Deanna. Then I would say, Deanna, is there anybody else in your world that you could send my homes to? They're available within the next month. So I would talk to Deanna and I would say, Deanna, is there anybody else in your world that you could send my available properties to? They're going to be available in the next 30 days. And she would send it to the whole office. And then let's say 3 of them had Phoenix claims at the time, 3 of them would reply, and I would then talk to those 3. Now I got 5 people in my CRM. Then I would talk to them and I'd send them an email the following week. I'd get 3 new answers. Now I have 8 in my CRM. And I built that up to 29 or now 30 friends that I have in these different companies. And they send me their leads. And the more I would make friends with them, the more leads they would send me. And that's how I started making my niche and my reputation in the MTR space, or in their world, the temporary accommodations space.
Oh, that's awesome. Why not long-term rentals? Why did you go into midterm rentals when you could have just done long-term rentals and not have to worry about any of that?
I did consider putting long-term rentals into my arbitrage properties. I was like, even if they just cover me and the utilities and so to break even on these properties that aren't doing great, I considered it, but it wasn't a good idea at the time because the bad properties were coming into busy season eventually. And I was like, let me see how this works on a full year basis. And then we had Super Bowl coming up. So I was like, I have faith that Super Bowl will be great. And for the good properties, every other property was doing fantastic. So midterm allowed me to keep doing the hospitality thing, the furnished hospitality thing, and make the most possible money. At that time, there wasn't even that much saturation at all. I was one of the only people doing MTR the way MTR is done today. And so it was so easy for me to get claims and so easy for me to price high. And I was just making so much money and nobody minded. Now there's more competition and the prices are maybe closer to the STR rates, but in both cases, it's way higher than the LTR rates. So I just didn't want to not cash flow the way I've been cash flowing.
Yeah. So how's the space looking like right now? Like, how do people get in contact with some of these agents that you are in contact with? If somebody wanted to start doing a short-term rental model, like how would they be able to get those same connections?
Yep, absolutely. Great questions. I'll say that there's the long answer. I have a free course. You can go to freestrcourse.com and I have a full-blown MTR program in there. And even though it's STR course, we also have an MTR course. So go check out. We have over 40 videos, over 120 hours of videos. So yeah, enjoy. And there's a bunch of a much longer answer to that really good question. For the sake of the podcast, I usually connect with them now through LinkedIn, email, and phone. Just pure sales job, right? Just and like any other sales job, you got to do your outreach, do your outbound. And if you're starting from scratch, LinkedIn is the easiest place to start. You can also ask your friends, hey, who do you know? That's a good way to do it, especially if you're contributing value to each other.
Who do they message on LinkedIn?
The housing specialist specifically. And this is what makes it so easy. If you go to linkedin.com, go to the search bar, type in ALE Solutions Housing Specialist. You'll get a whole list. 97 of them will pop up and you just connect. And I don't message all of them. It's not spammy. I look at one and I'm like, do I have any reason to reach out to you in particular? Maybe there isn't. Maybe there isn't anything in common, but I look for it. And if not, I'll still just reach out and say, hey, I see you do midterm rentals or temporary accommodations. I see we have 6 mutual friends. I'm familiar with Mike Stone, Jesse Vasquez, Ruben Kanya, and or Dr. Rachel Gainsborough, and or Noble Crawford, people who have reputations in this space where they might. That's not even the reputation thing. It's just an icebreaker. Any icebreaker that you can have a reason to talk to them and show them your properties. The thing to keep in mind is to be hyper-professional. Because back in my day, I could be like, hey, Deanna, what is this? What are we doing here and how do I help? Now there's enough of us who do it professionally, who know what to do and what to say, that if you just say, hey, I got a 1-bedroom house in the middle of Oklahoma and I want a direct booking, yeah, midterm rental guests, they're not even going to respond to you. There's too many people doing it the right way. But if you have a portfolio, let's say 2 of my students, one's in Baton Rouge with 12, one's in White Mountains, New Hampshire with 24. When they reach out to these housing specialists on LinkedIn, they're saying, hey, I have 12, 24 options for you in this city. I have multiple zip codes. I have multiple bedroom counts. I have all the things that you will need to place your insured families in quality accommodation. I have 5-star reviews. Everything is furnished but can be unfurnished. That's actually a hot topic. Some of them will only work with unfurnished properties now, which is relatively new. And so if your property is not furnished, definitely reach out and say that. If your property is partially furnished, that's actually a good thing because they make plenty of money using their own internal rental furniture for the guests. So you just let them know, hey, I have all these properties, furnished, unfurnished. This is when they're available. This is the price. This is the zip codes. Give them something about you and put that together in a nice marketing package, or at least a very well-written email. Clear, short, don't waste their time. They're not interested in your background story or who you are. There's way too many of us right now. Just be direct. This is how I solve your problems. These are the houses that you need. And if they respond to you on LinkedIn and you start making friends with them over time, that's how you build your book of business B2B and be relatable and then it's about fulfillment. If you can actually deliver because you're not just, hey, I have one house and I'm panicked because it's my slow season. That's not really appealing to them. They don't care that you have slow season. If you say, hey, I have a bunch of options and I'd love to help place your families in my homes, I have a huge network in this city, please think of me every time you have a Phoenix claim. Then they're like, okay, I do have a Phoenix claim. Or actually, next week, they said no, but next week they have a Phoenix claim. And they're like, oh, Mike, he's the Phoenix guy.
That's awesome. And so do you keep track of that book of business anywhere?
Big time. Yeah, I actually used to have a really robust CRM with like notes and Monday.com status labels and bells and whistles. And since then, I've actually just kept it way more clean. I moved it over to Google Sheets. Name, company, phone, email, notes. Done. That's it. I think if you overcomplicate it, it becomes a burden to keep up with instead of just a basic list. Now when I'm sending them an email, I just go to that Google Sheet, column B, I grab emails, and I put it in the BCC column, and I shoot off an email. It's so easy, just keeping it simple. And then I have a separate list of all the past guest names. I've closed, and I think the number is 27 midterm rental contracts for myself and my clients in the last 2.5 years or so. So I keep track of all their names, and I'm going through it slowly to go back over past data because I didn't always do this, to check like pricing and like how long they stayed and what was their reason and for extensions and what company they came from. So I'm gonna just get some more data on how I've performed so far, since now it's a lot, which is awesome. But yeah, it's as far as outbound, very simple CRM. And as far as retention of that data, I would recommend keeping track of your MTR wins.
Awesome. Yeah. And how do you, because you're talking a lot about MTRs, how do you really set yourself up for MTRs, especially when you have short-term rentals? Like I would always, for me, I get bookings out months in advance as a short-term rental investor. So I'm curious how you set up your calendars.
Which is smart. And that's what most short-term rental operators would pride themselves on. I'm booked 4 months out. It feels great. And entering busy season, that may feel great. And depending on how your calendar looks as far as vacancies, what I call Swiss cheese, that's where it might be a headache. But you're going to continue to battle on Airbnb, and a good short-term rental operator will end up fine, especially in busy season, all good. As you enter slow season, that's maybe not as true, and maybe where it's a better opportunity to try starting this model. But I'm at a point now where I've done so much work to build my book of business outbound that I have enough leads inbound that I'm confident in my ability to get midterm rentals on an ongoing basis. My lead flow, my guest flow is fantastic. And so I compress my booking window to a 2-week booking window. Now, what I mean by that is not a hard limit. It's not blocked. I'm not crazy. I think that would be irresponsible. What I do instead is after 2 weeks, I make it really difficult to book with me. That doesn't mean I don't get bookings. That means I get the bookings I want. So here's what I do. My minimum night pricing, not pricing, at first it's just a minimum night stay requirement, will increase 2 weeks out. If I have only a few properties, I'll take 2 night stays. Some I'll do 3. 2 weeks out, it goes to 3 on all of them. 3 weeks out, it goes to 4 on all of them. 4-night minimum. 1 month out, it's a 7-night minimum, a full week. And after 6 weeks or 8 weeks, I think that might depend on the property if I remember correctly, I go to 14-night minimums. And then farther out, I literally at some point have a 30-night minimum because I don't want far out bookings. I don't want it because to me, to get, let's say $500 a night for 5 nights a month from now, it sounds good to take $2,500 as accounts receivable, but that then blocks me from getting, let's say $15,000 a month in the same property I'm talking about for 3 to 5 months.
Right.
And so I would much rather leave the little money on the table knowing that it's, first of all, it's likely I get a midterm rental at a better price. And worst case is, you've seen the whole industry right now is every booking window is compressing. So to be booked out with Swiss cheese for, let's say, 2 months doesn't appeal to me when I can keep it and still feel confident that I'll fill it at close to 90% occupancy. Usually I'm really good like that. And I like to optimize for occupancy, and I haven't had to pull back my rates on my properties to get better than, I think 50, 60, even 70 standard. I'm pretty comfortable over 80 with prices that I'm really happy with. So, and that's consistent even with my 2-week booking window. And that's all down to basic operational skill of having quality listings and marketing and all the right settings, and how it goes. But
So how would you price a midterm rental versus a short-term rental? If I can make more money in the next month as a short-term rental, I would rather just keep it as a short-term rental, right? So how do you keep?
that's the big myth.
Yeah.
That's the big myth. I think most people think of Furnish Finder
Yep.
and or travel nurses, and they think low income for midterm rentals. And in those two instances, they're correct. Furnish Finder doesn't even have a setting above $3,600. They have a $3,600 plus, and you don't really know what that means. And it's certainly not going to land you at $15,000. I would say 99% of the time. So Furnish Finder's for lower quality and lower, let's say lower cost properties. And so I don't use Furnish Finder. Travel nurses as well. When you're working with a travel nurse, B2C, direct to the consumer, the nurse is getting a stipend. That stipend has to account for her housing, her car, or his dog, significant other, groceries, fun, and profit. They're trying to keep as much of that as possible. So you're negotiating against somebody who's working for their money. In the insurance space, you're just arguing with a budget. It's not even an argument. You're just discussing. You're setting the price against the budget. And if it fits, they sign the check. And if it doesn't fit, they don't. And that's when the game is on. It's okay, please come back to me. Let's negotiate. Let's see what the market rates are. Let's see if I'm right, if you're right. So I have a very varied pricing. It's very creative and very case by case, but I can give you a rule of thumb, a catch, and then a point to make. The rule of thumb is I like to price my midterm rentals $2,000 higher than my short-term rentals.
What does that mean? Does that mean at 100% occupancy as a short-term rental you want? So let's say I choose a month on Airbnb and it shows across the whole month without any discounts, that's 4,000. You would price it at 6,000.
Right. Now that's not counting no Airbnb service fees, which would apply there and blah, blah, blah. But that's partly why I can do that is because I'm saving 15% off the bat for the booking agent. So they're already in a better shape, in a better position there. Plus the catch is it has to be relatively market rate. If I put it up for 6, I need to somewhat be able to justify that, and that's a matter of being good at comps, almost like a realtor, where you're like, hey, these houses are similar in the market, and if you're even getting into that much of the weeds, and I have before, but not that often. Usually they're like, yep, this in the budget, we're good. If it doesn't, that's when you're having that conversation. You're like, was that a fair price? Here's an example of a big win like this, and I do want to make the disclaimer that it's an art, not a science, and if you want to just go for occupancy, I know Jesse would rather do more deals and not try to squeeze his clients on price. I go back and forth case by case, right? But as a general matter, especially in the beginning when I was one of the only ones doing MTR like this, I was always looking for price. So here's one of my big pricing wins is in an area of Scottsdale where the AirDNA and Tristan Patricka's property across the street justify $6,000 a month. I charged $9,000 a month for the same 4-bedroom home. Where it got dicey, that was fine and approved. That was 4.5 months, but they wanted to have a 6.5 month stay. For the extra 2 months, that was in our peak season, February and March. I told the housing specialist I need to do it for $15,000. She was like, that's crazy. I said, I know. She said, you have to come down. I said, I can't. It's Super Bowl. It's Golf Waste Management Open. It's golfers in general. It's snowbirds. It's tourism. It's our best weather. I'm not going to be able to lower the price. I would get that price. I would get 15 on the short-term rental market. And she was like, damn. And now I don't actually necessarily think I would have gotten 15 on the short-term rental market. I know I could have at 100% occupancy at the prices that I wanted. And it was justifiable under all the circumstances of Super Bowl. It's like, you can look anywhere else. Look at all these comps. The Super Bowl prices right now are $3,000 a night. It doesn't even make sense. I can give you $15,000 for the month. That's 5 nights at most of these other ridiculous properties, and I'm not making that up. She's all right, nothing we can do. It fits in the budget. So that's where it's like, they'll work with you if there's circumstances that justify your price. All she needed was a long email from me punching out those items. All the 5 reasons why I said that it's higher price for these particular months than is reasonable. She sent that to the adjuster. Adjuster said, "But sucks," and signed the check.
It's logic. It's just logic, making sure it makes sense logically. Yeah.
Logically and in their coverage. So there's 4 types of coverage when they're in this position, coverage A, B, C, D, and D relates to housing. One's for whatever, maybe groceries or I don't know what ABC is, but D is for housing specifically. And so they are that if they have $100,000, for example, in coverage D for under their insurance policy, that means they get to spend $100,000 across the year. So you divide that by 12, what's that, $8,300 a month-ish? And so that's what you'd be able to charge in theory. But then if they're only staying for 6 months, now all of a sudden, is there $16,000 a room? Looks like there might be. Are you sure they're not going to have to extend longer? Because if they're definitely not extending longer, you might be able to charge $16,000 a month. If they are going to potentially need to extend longer, you don't want to exhaust the entire budget. So you maybe say, okay, let's do the $8,300 or the $1,300, and you just start playing with numbers and seeing what they're going to approve. And if they're going to give you a hard time, you got to save the relationships. You'd be like, all right, yeah, I'll lower it. But if you can't lower it, if you're going to make, in your example, if you're going to make $4,000 in the short-term rental market, and they come to you and they say, we could do $3,500, you just don't do the deal. You could. So here's the thing. This is why I say midterm rentals can only make you more money than short-term rentals. It's because if it's the same, great. If it's more, great. If it's less, you literally just don't have to do the deal. And my caveat to that is sometimes I literally will do the deal. I've been in that exact mathematical position where a $4,000 property, they've offered $3,500. I just didn't want to think about that property for a while, especially a low-income property, not low-income, a low-quality property with riffraff guests. To me, that's maintenance and turnovers and headaches, and I just don't want to be on my phone that much when I can get the same or let's say $500 less. I'll take that some months. Just set it and forget it. I got a big enough portfolio that I'll go focus on the rest of that and building my business for that month. Shut my brain off on the property.
Yeah, so you can, let's say you decide to go away to Greece for a month. You could just do midterm rentals for all your properties and just set it up that way because you just don't want the hassle.
If you had the guest flow for that, in theory, but it's tough. I've been in the fortunate positions where I've had 100% of my properties with midterm rentals or 70% are midterm rentals, and you notice a difference in the inbound calls and notifications. It's a big difference, but it's tough. It's not as consistent as Airbnb. And that's the thing. And that's why I run that hybrid model. I don't recommend anyone doing MTR only. If you're in an HOA and you can't help it, that's one thing. But if you have the option, or if you're buying a property, buy where you can run both. Because there will be long enough vacancies in MTR between insurance contracts that you could fill it with short-term rentals. Now, you may be able to, like in the case of that 4-bedroom I was talking about in Scottsdale, where that was such a huge win. I paid that guy's whole year mortgage and then some. If he didn't want to do anything for the other 3 months a year that he actually uses the property himself, that's literally what happens in real life. We get 9 months, I cover his whole mortgage, and then for the other 3 months, he's living for free. He could leave it vacant. He could live there himself. We could short-term rent. We could do it. Whatever you want to do, it's options. But I like having options. I don't want to be forced to have a vacancy because what if we didn't get such a monster contract? What if $15,000 didn't fly for that particular claim? And then we're just sitting there just waiting for an MTR while he pays his mortgage. I don't love that.
So how do you comp, let's say somebody comes with their home to you and say, hey, listen, I know that you do MTRs and stuff. Like how much money am I going to make as an MTR here? Like, what's your answer to that? How do you look at
For
that?
them, I would always recommend we run the numbers like an STR, straight up. Let's not anticipate that we get these crazy contracts because they are wins based on my hard work and my relationships, and they will come because I do hard work and because I have these relationships, but I don't want to run numbers that way. I want to run numbers that what is the best operating short-term.
It's only gravy. If you do MTRs, it's only gravy because it's just going to be. And do you charge more for those MTRs or no?
No, honestly, I've actually been asked to charge less. People think that it's less because that's what you meant. Yeah, that's the most common question.
Do you charge us for MTRs?
Never. And the reason is because even though they're correct that the operations are much, much easier, the upfront work is much, much harder and expensive. I pay for my marketing. I pay $200 a month to CHBO at corporatehousingbyowner.com, and I've never gotten a quality conversion from them. So but I get enough leads that it's like, yeah, maybe one day I will. And if I do, these few $200 payments will pay for themselves and then some. So I keep it going. Then I spend money on my team or my content creation, and then whatever it is to build the business. MTR is a lot harder for me. And I think that is why more people aren't doing it. It's a barrier to entry that actually requires you to build your own book of business. Whereas Airbnb, you put your listing up, as soon as you hit that on button, the largest multi-billion-dollar sales and marketing engine in the world, putting renters in houses professionally, is now trying to fill your house so that it can make money. It's a lot easier than making cold calls, starting on LinkedIn and emailing people who don't necessarily need to hear from you.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to do it my way. So no, I don't charge less.
Would it make sense to do that for 1 or 2 properties if you had 1 or 2 properties to build a book of business like that?
So potentially. It depends on your commitment. At that stage especially, it depends on your commitment. I have a couple students. I'm going to shout out Tracy Kunka right now. She has one property near Riverside, California, and she's got a bunch of friends in the area. So what's great for her, she just closed on an excellent deal a couple of weeks ago on the one property she has because she's been doing the work. She's doing the outbound. She's I got to fill this house some way. I have the mortgage, whether I do the work or not. So I'm going to do the work. She puts herself in front of the right people. She reaches out to the right networks as operators as well as housing specialists, and she'll be doing the right thing. She deserves her win. What's cool about her, though, is because she has other friends in the same area, she can put herself out there and say, hey, call me for anything Riverside-ish. Paris is the name of her town. But call me for anything around here. Oh, it's also near Corona. I can pass it to my friends. I know Brianna Mumford. I know Will Dotson. I know everybody else in this area. I can just feed you whether she takes a fee or not. But that's what I call bird dogging. That's where I got my biggest contract ever, is you get the assignment first, get the contract first, and then the door, you go hunt for it. And that's my favorite because that's literally no risk. So I would say if you have 1 or 2 properties and you want to learn MTR, do the work with the intention of building your portfolio and or bird dogging to your friends who you already know in the area. Yeah, I think it's a great strategy. If you have 1 property and you don't want to do the work and you're just kicking tires and you're like, so here, I get these discovery calls, and I'll just be a little brutally honest for a minute and eliminate more of these. I'll get discovery calls with people who have left short-term rental secrets, and they're like, yeah, I was in it for a year or longer, and I just didn't feel like I got the support I needed, or Bills, the inner circle, and I didn't feel like I got the support I needed. I want to try MTR. And I'm like, listen, those 2 programs, and I can speak from Showbiz from personal experience, are so good and so complete that if you don't feel like you got what you wanted out of them, I'm not going to suddenly be able to turn on the MTR jets for you, and all of a sudden you're taking all this action. I don't think that's the move. If you're the type of person who could be successful in a mastermind, learning from the coaching, implementing it, taking the action, working relentlessly, getting the wins, then I do think this is for you. That's a pretty important distinction for you to just be honest with yourself. If you're not going to do the work, don't start. Don't pretend. Don't kid yourself. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people are trying to jump from thing to thing and try to think, okay, if I jump to this coach, it's going to change everything. Because sometimes it's you. It's you, buddy. It's like a relationship. It's you, buddy. If every relationship's ending and maybe you're the problem, maybe you got to reevaluate life and see what the why is and go through this spiritual journey to understand, maybe I should change my life.
That's literally it. Take some responsibility, and maybe it's not for you, and that's also okay. Maybe your family obligations or other professional obligations or whatever obligations, maybe this isn't for you. I'm just saying, be honest with yourself. Don't pretend it is like this is the next easy thing. It's because at that point, it's beyond shiny objects. It's not like I want to learn and figure it out. It's, I want the next way to make money easy, and I just don't even recommend that be your mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Cool, man. Dude, I love this whole rundown. Is there any other things that you want to mention about MTR strategy with short-term rentals that you would give as a pointer to anybody that's listening?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is pricing strategy and calendar management. I think that's what puts you in the position to get MTRs in the first place. I also think simultaneously, the important thing is to turn on the faucet first. So if you are the kind of person who wants to learn MTR and take MTR bookings, and you are the kind of person who's going to put 7-8 hours a week into doing so, then learn it and just execute and do the right thing, and it will work. It's a great strategy. But turn the faucet on and relate to the housing specialist and make the friends first so that you have the lead flow before you start chopping your calendar off at the knees and sacrificing your short-term rental income.
Yeah.
If you do those things at the same time, you will find success in midterm rentals. Then as the guest flow comes in, you can start being more careful with your pricing strategy and calendar management to accommodate so that you can say yes when you get the lead. If you have any questions about that, again, go to freestrcourse.com or freeairbnbcourse.com, whichever one you remember. I have both. Tommy Sedita is another elite operator. He's my partner in STR Ignite. That's our coaching program. We've literally been charging for this coaching program the whole time. And then as of literally yesterday, I had a speaking gig yesterday, and we decided that would be the first unofficial soft launch. Whenever this comes out, it'll be the next soft launch of we're giving it away for free. Minus the weekly calls, just all of the videos, 100% of the videos. So I think you can get a lot of good information there about MTR. You can get validation if you're already an STR operator. If you want to go through those STR videos, they're there for you for free. If you don't use them, so what? But yeah, no catch. Enjoy.
Amazing. I love that. We're going to get into the last 3 questions now, and I'm just going to do one scenario question. I always do. And then I'm going to do just 2 common questions that I ask every guest.
I'm nervous. I feel like you're going to be ruthless, and I have to come up with something really funny on the spot.
No, the first one is there any book or mastermind or anything that you have learned the most from, any kind of resource?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I'm obsessed with I read a lot. I follow a lot of business influencers. I think the best book I've ever read was Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. I wouldn't read that book until you've read Think and Grow Rich, but what's really cool about how he goes into that interview and how he personifies the devil and has it conversational through that book, it really allows you to put yourself in his position and relate to different parts of the book as it would affect your own life. And there's just themes that affect how I make decisions as core values. When he talks about drifting as a matter of just letting the matrix, whatever, mind take over, and you just get into Netflix mode or pleasure mode and optimizing for happiness and indulgences, how that's just such a direct conflict to what your actual goals are, and you're hurting yourself proactively by doing so. By not doing anything, you're not resting, you're hurting yourself. And do more, and that leads into other things that I hear from other business, other things I hear from other business influencers like Hormozi. Do more. Drifting is when you're just being lazy and you're being mindless. If you're being intentional and taking action, that's the opposite. And that's how I just make my decisions. When I wake up and I'm tired and I don't want to, I'm the same as anybody else, but I do it every time. I literally work 15 to 18 hours a day, every single day. I don't take days off. I absolutely don't. That's just not my preference. This is what I want to do in my life right now. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying making professional friends like you and meeting people at conferences and going to these events. Last night I had my own speaking gig. Half the room was my own real estate related friends, and the other half of the room was new people who I wanted to become friends with, but that same high level, high minded kind of person. And being rooted in mindset and meeting other people, whether coincidentally or not, who are also rooted mentally in their mindset tactics, and we could discuss how we make ourselves better. I love being around people like that, man. And what's great about this industry, short-term rentals specifically, is you meet a lot of people who come from that mindset and that orientation of abundance and wanting to share and work and enjoy personal development. Right. So I would say, yeah, I definitely Think and Grow Rich first, but Outwitting the Devil is an amazing book.
I think that just screams you're a workaholic and making excuses that you have friends. No, I'm kidding.
I have not seen my really good friends in a very long time. That is true.
Who's going to show up on your birthday? No, I'm kidding. No, I definitely feel that. I work 16-hour days. I actually related to that a lot because my girlfriend always jokes with me, yeah, you don't have any friends. I'm like, they're all online. I swear, I have friends. They're real. They're real. I have friends online. I talk to them all the time, but you don't see it. And who's going to show up to your birthday party? I'm like, yeah, actually, I love it.
And so it's all digital friends. And then we realize each other in conferences and meetups, and that's what makes it great. I love my old friends. I still consider them friends, but I'm just on a path right now. And so if the other people around me are on the same path, let's keep going.
I understand. It's like when we were at STR Wealth and we hung out, like we just all drank beer and just chatted, talked, some stuff. I remember that conversation.
But like other people, friends, non-professional friends, wouldn't give a shit. But I give a shit.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I'm going to put you in a situation, man. So I'm going to give it to you. And I'm going to put you in a position that is a lot harder, but I'm curious how you handle it. Let's say that Joshua Tree is a more remote market. You're in a city market. Joshua Tree is a little bit more of a remote market. There's other remote markets that are out there as well that maybe there aren't as many people that maybe get replaced in terms of like insurance claim. Now, I want you to develop a strategy. Let's say you just go to Joshua Tree selfishly, but let's build a strategy. How would you build MTR strategy in Joshua Tree where it's more remote? There's really not that many insurance claims of that nature. How would you strategize to build both hybrid model?
What I would do if I were you is consider going wide first because there's multiple silos. I agree right at the outset, you're correct. Population density and type of property is a huge deal with insurance. And there's two sides to that. You want as dense as possible, but you don't want to go as far as like New York, Boston, where it's concrete vertical buildings because they have different property managers. And if there's a fire in a building like that, it's a much different situation. So it's not just to displace one guy. And even if it were like one guy's fire in an apartment, they might move him to the model room for a little while. Like it's not our world. But to be in the middle of nowhere, there's nothing to go wrong. So that's not great for MTR. So I would say do as much as you can on the insurance front and capture that as if you would anything else. Put the time in and cultivate those relationships. Then when something does happen in Joshua Tree, you're the guy because there's probably not a lot of MTR people in Joshua Tree. You could probably be the guy relatively easily. But then as far as going wide and checking out the other silos, travel medical is another great analogy. Literally, the hospital is the same thing as the insurance company. The staffing agency is the same thing as the temporary accommodations provider entity. The recruiter, who is the man or woman in charge of finding contracts for the nurses for work as well as for housing, B2B, is the same as the housing specialist. And then the nurse is the same as the family. So it's a direct analogy. And as long as you learn the lingo, you don't have to change your process at all. You just make different phone calls. Instead of calling the TAPs, you would call the staffing agencies. Other options include as well construction. There's a website called constructconnect.com, $1,200 for the year. I think it was worth it. I didn't get all the way to closing a claim with it, but I was learning about it and then just started having MTR success with ALE Solutions and dug deep. But this is my point of your strategy, is if this works for you, again, same process. Find the decision maker. Who's in charge of housing? It's either human resources or someone with housing in their job title, housing specialist, housing coordinator, housing whatever. And where are these construction projects happening? If there's construction in Joshua Tree, there's very likely migrant or other workers who need housing temporarily. And then government contracts is another opportunity as well that you could explore. That's its own world. And I leave that to Noble, but I definitely think that's worth learning. And then once you start going broader with ways to get MTR guests, then you could be like, oh, this travel nurse thing is hitting off. I got a great relationship with this hospital. Forget insurance. Let me just dig deeper here.
That makes sense. So it's a bunch of MTR strategies, and you can always dive into whichever one works the best for your area. Nice. That was a good. And then lastly, what's in the future for Mike? What are you working on?
So the coolest thing I'm working on right now that I'm most excited about is STR Ignite. Originally it was a coaching program, but it's developing really nicely into more of a marketplace. In addition to the course videos are free, there's no catch there at all. But after that, if you like those videos, the point is for $50 a month, we will give you our SOPs, everything. We have a whole master download. In one click, you can have every SOP we've created, including the table of contents for SOPs that are coming out. And we're going to be updating this each month, every single month. So if you need a cleaning checklist, it's there. That might inherently be worth $50 if it's going to save you time. But the idea is right now there's 25 or 30 SOPs in there already, including my MTR SOPs. So everything STR that you need, and then everything MTR that you need. Building out properties, maintenance, routine and active, and emergency maintenance and quality control maintenance monthly, and just how to handle resolution center claims, safely insurance. We got it all. Every thought that we've ever had, Tommy and I both being top operators in this country for the last 3+, he's even more, over 4 years now. I'm getting close to 4 years, I think, if I remember correctly. Everything is now itemized on our SOP book. Because I see the question in Facebook groups constantly, hey, what do you do here? What do you do here? And now I'm starting to see, hey, why don't we all share SOPs? But the one thing, as abundant as this industry is, I don't see people just blatantly sharing SOPs that much. So we're doing it for $50 a month, and we'll keep it super, super updated. And so we're building out the funnels and the landing pages for that, which has been interesting. I've never done this deep of marketing stuff before. So I'm learning a lot about marketing and sales, which is cool. But the whole goal is to be Hormozy about it and just way over deliver to a point, really, it would be stupid not to be a part of it. That'll also, the same $50 will also include access to our community. As we grow the Ignite community, we have a bunch of students already from the coaching program, but it'll also be just people who can get in for the $50 and help each other, send SOPs, send updates. If you do something differently in your market, or at your luxury property, you have a different maintenance checklist than at a 2-bedroom apartment, great, let's keep building the vault and keep helping each other in that community. There's a leaderboard and ways to win prizes and more coaching and all kinds of stuff. And so just tons of giveaways. Just again, way over delivering on the 50. And so is the community, the tools, calculators, deal analysis, spreadsheets. What else am I forgetting? There's just, and then media. We're like podcasts like this. We're going to do monthly podcasts with more like trends, market updates, both in STR and MTR. Cool people in the industry, just get them on for fun. So yeah, just trying to build the whole thing out for $50.
So that's awesome. So you're building this digital stuff. Are you investing at all or no?
Yeah, that's going to happen this year. I'm interested in this new Fannie Mae loan product. There's pros and cons, but there's a new product, 5% down on an investment property if it's multifamily. And that sounds super appealing to me. I would love to put 5% down on $1 million quad, something like that, and rent out 3 of them, live in one of them. But then the idea of living in one of them, I don't like the idea of tenants knowing that I live at the property, man. I don't want them knocking. I don't want to be there. So I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things that it's my primary for a little bit and then it's not my primary. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But either that or, like I was saying, the 5-bedroom, the ROI is just ridiculous in Phoenix and Scottsdale. I would love to find an ideal. I have a few zip codes that I particularly like around here, that I have some experience in particular. That is where I would invest. So I'm going to look for something like that.
Awesome. And how can people reach out to you to talk to you?
I would please funnel everybody to Instagram. It's the best one for me to keep up with. I have people I genuinely love in my Facebook DMs that I just don't have the time to get back to, but I've been good about keeping up with Instagram. So find me on Instagram at Mike Stone Group, and I will direct traffic from there for whether you need full service co-hosting or MTR or coaching or whatever the heck it is that I'm up to these days.
Cool, man. Thank you so much. Thanks for hopping on, man, and shooting game. Appreciate you. And
appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Take it easy, all right? Peace.
Awesome. You too, brother. Talk to you soon.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to the Patrick Real Estate Show. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a follow and leave us a 5-star review. Your support truly means a lot. And connect with Patrick in the show notes below. Until next time.